on to tonight's meeting of the Law Committee. Can we take a roll?
Sure. Kuhn,
Here.
Reedy,
Present.
Feeney,
Present.
Larilliard, McLaughlin,
Here.
Plotsky, Ricard,
Present.
Bergdorf,
Here.
and Whalen. 8 present, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, great, thanks. The only item of business on the agenda is authorizing an agreement with the Legal Aid Society of Northeastern New York Incorporated and United Tenants of Albany regarding the Eviction Prevention Intervention Collaborative. I believe legislator Hine is here to talk about this.
Yes, I think everyone's pretty familiar with this legislation, especially after public forum tonight, but just want to stress, this has been in the works for quite a while. It's going to be really impactful. It's going to help a lot of tenants stay in their homes. It's going to lead to better resolutions in housing court. And as you heard from many landlords tonight, it's going to be good for landlords too, because it's good when there's attorneys on both sides, and because we have $100,000 in rental arrears in this program, so that when a tenant goes into court and they have an attorney there, attorney on both sides, they can work on a resolution. If that tenant's behind on rent, there's a pot of money. They can come up with a solution where that money can then help the tenant stay in their home and make the landlord whole. So, I think it's important that we move this forward and pass it tonight.
Okay, questions? Mr. Malowitz?
Are you on the committee?
Are you on the committee?
We may have the same question. I wanted to confirm, has the city of Albany passed this same, passed resolution regarding EPIC?
Yes, they have set aside $100,000 for it, and then CARES, nonprofit, set aside like $70,000.
So that's a total of 170 an hour.
160.
160.
So that's money is sitting there ready to go when we pass this, so the program can start.
My other question is, I'm not really sure who, at this point, who's making the actual decisions? Is it United Tenants? And what's the other entity
Legal aid.
that's making the decision on who is actually getting the funding? Could you clear that up for me? Who is making the decision on what tenants are eligible, and then the selection process?
Well,
How does that flow?
Legal Aid is the main
Legal Aid
group on the
Society.
RFP, Legal Aid Society of Northeastern New York, and then United Tenants is like a subgroup in that RFP. I think the RFP specifies, I wrote up the notes here, but I wrote down on it. It's really, it's based on need. I think it specifies in the RFP certain parameters, like people under,
Certain
priority
threshold.
given to people under 50% AMI, even more priority given to people with within 125% of the federal poverty line. But I think it's going to be Legal Aid Society and United Tenants that are going to be
Making the decision.
making those decisions ultimately.
Thank you.
So they'll control the purse strings for this $100,000?
They will make determinations based on the specifications that are in the RFP that they responded to. Who qualifies for that 100.
And is this the $100,000? So it's $100,000. There's $260,000. $100,000 is for Albany City residents only. Are we paying
No,
for
that's
that?
the City of Albany's piece.
Okay.
The City of Albany's money is city residents only. All of our money is countywide, both City and Albany and outside of the City of Albany. And the $100,000 one thing that was in there is, it's if the tenant shows that they have income and they're able to pay their rent. So we're not just giving out money to a tenant that is going to fall right back into it 2 months later. This is, we come up with good solutions that will help tenants stay in their homes, make landlords whole.
And is the idea this we're going to be doing this every year, like the $100,000? This is like 1 year budget.
This is 1 year, a one-time expense.
Well, okay, it's a one-time expense
It's
for
a
this year.
one-time expense, yeah, well,
Just a one-time expense.
if we wanted to do this.
Well, it's not
we could consider that in the
automatically
future, but
recurring?
This is a one-time
Okay.
expense,
So-
no commitment past
Can I
that.
ask a follow-up question?
Absolutely.
Everything in the budget's a one-time expense.
Okay, let's have some
Yeah.
order.
Thank you, Mr.
My
Chairman.
hand was up before.
Sam, just a follow-up to what the chairman asked. So
you said $100,000 is gonna be distributed to various municipalities outside of Albany, is that what you said?
The county's putting 160,000 total. That's all going to be going to the entire county,
Okay.
including the city of Albany, Cohoes, Waterville,
Right,
Colony, everywhere.
so that's my question, how is Cohoes, Waterville, and Colony gonna receive an equal distribution of that money you just allocated? Or will it be a third, and third in that case?
No, it'll be based on need. So if there's tenants who are in eviction court in Cohoes who need an attorney, they'll provide them with an attorney.
Okay, I just wanna make sure our municipality gets the same distribution or allocation as
Yeah.
other,
It probably won't be
Municipalities.
the same amount as Albany because there's less population in Cohoes, probably less people in housing
Right,
court.
absolutely.
But someone in Cohoes housing court who's facing eviction will have just as good of a chance of getting that assistance as someone in Albany. in
okay,
housing
that's
court.
my question, thank you.
Okay. Ms.
Just,
Foskey.
just to clarify, so legal aid is the sort of administrator of these funds. Eligibility is based on the criteria we've already set up. And there's no specific delineation like, oh, you're from, Cohoes, you qualify, and you're from Green Island. We already had enough people from Green Island, you don't qualify. There's nothing like that. It's basically just filtering through legal aid. Whoever qualifies is able to access this program.
Yes,
Right, it's not
cor-
delineated geographically in any way,
Correct.
other
yes.
than like City of Albany and,
Yes,
yeah,
there's not a
okay,
certain amount allotted to each municipality. It's
Fine.
based on need, and
Yeah.
tenants will get help
sure,
when they have that.
okay, thank you.
Laura.
So one of the things they're doing, they're funding a staff person at legal aid to do this, and that staff person will be like the intake person and providing the legal services, right?
Yes.
So it's not geographically dependent, that's a funded position to do this job.
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Bergdorf.
Yeah, Sam, do you have,
We're doing the committee members first, then when
I
you're.
have another question.
I am a committee member, I don't get
Oh,
a
I'm
seat,
sorry.
but, you know,
Well,
we don't have enough for the
see what I
committee.
started, see what we did?
Okay, Mr. Bergdorf.
Yeah, Sam, do you have other examples where the county gets involved in civil matters between private parties? People who own real estate and people who rent real estate from them, or any other example? I understand how we have responsibilities when people's possible detainment in jail and the like in criminal matters. There are requirements for the county to provide assistance. But what about, are there civil examples for this?
Well, one, I want to say, I think housing court, when someone's facing an eviction, it is a unique circumstance. So of course, public defenders provide legal representation to people in criminal cases, but I think when you're faced before a judge facing eviction, you're at risk of losing your housing, becoming homelessness, not just you, but often you have a family. Your whole life's going to be uprooted. So I think it's a unique circumstance where we want to make sure that they have that representation.
Is the next step small claims court where you can go for up to $10,000 against your next door neighbor? We're gonna start siding against neighbor versus neighbor in small claims court?
I think that's a different kind of case. As I said, I think this is
You
more
could,
of a
that can
unique
ruin you, that
circumstance
can
based-
ruin you more quickly financially
I think
if there's a
housing is.
potential suit for $10,000.
I understand, of course, if that's something you want to do, we can discuss it, but I think housing is such a fundamental, fundamental thing that you have to have in your life to survive, that it makes sense, that the least we can do is make sure someone has representation when they're at risk of losing it.
Well, just so you know, I'm not gonna support this, and I personally believe that what you're seeing this year for $160,000, once people come back to you next year and tell you they need to phase it in, that $160,000 is gonna go the way of the public defender and the alternate public defender and every other councilmatic representation program the county has. And I don't think this is a good idea, and I won't be supporting it for that reason.
Okay, I want to let Mr. Tamalo speak, but I'll make one distinction. The the public defenders and the alternate public defenders, those are county employees.
Right.
These are not county employees. This is money that we're giving to a non-governmental entity to run this program. So I believe that there's a fundamental distinction between those two. And there's a big difference between criminal things and housing, which is a pretty, fundamental part of society. versus small claims court. So,
If you're being sued for $10,000 in small claims court and you have $1,000 rent, you might not feel that way.
right, but nobody's talking about that. It's
No,
kind of a
but the whole
straw
issue,
man.
You may believe this is a strong.
I do.
Well, that, you have a right to that opinion, and I have a right to mine.
Certainly
And
do.
I believe that we're going down a path here, and we're opening up a precedent that is going to come back to haunt this county over time.
Okay,
That's
Mr.
my
Demolowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Out of the funds that we're allocating here, how much is the lawyers gonna get and how much is actually gonna go to paying the rents?
Mr. Fine?
Out of it, the $160,000, $60,000 is for the legal counsel and $100,000 is for the arrears program.
Okay. I have concerns about this also, and I'm not supporting it either, not for your reasons, but I'm thinking about the small family owner who owns maybe a 1 or 2 family house in the city, whose taxes just got doubled. Who's thinking of them? Who's gonna help them to make sure that he pays his taxes on time? Because there's gonna be nobody there. There's nothing in this legislation, it's all one-sided. The legislation should be at least equal so that, you know, the landlord, the small landlord can have help, and the tenants. But the simple fact is also, I think I heard when we talked about this before, the reason why there's so many lawyers representing landlords, it's because by law. I think Mr. Trigg said that, the LLC law. They have to have a lawyer by law. But not that the guy that owns the 2-family or two families, he pays the $600,000. That comes out of his pocket to represent himself and a lawyer. What are we gonna do to help them? That's my concern.
Mr. Fine, the rent arrearage, when the $100,000,
Yes.
who's that money ultimately going to?
That's going to the landlords.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Platsky?
That's what I was going to bring up. That's going to the landlords, and we did discuss this, that if there seems to be a need for that very small percentage of landlords that are not acting, I shouldn't say small percentage, that subset of landlords that are not renting through an LLC, that we would address that down the road, that we want to get this, well, personally, I would like to get this passed now so we can launch this program and then see where we go from there.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you. I think someone may have misinterpreted what Gary said. Ms. Plasky, I don't know. What Gary's saying is that all property owners, no matter how many buildings they may own, if they are under a corporate structure,
They need an attorney.
are required by administrative law in New York State, this is court administrative law, they cannot represent themselves pro se.
Correct.
Many people have that corporate structure because we live in New York State, where I can sue you, you can sue me for pretty much anything. So people they got a house that grandma left them, they're not gonna give it away, you know, to the lawyers, no offense to the lawyers. They're gonna have something to try to bulwark that. You know, I'm sure your business is an LLC, right? Just like mine. We all take that precaution. But in New York State, under the current regime, the property owner is penalized for that. When I say regime, like the whole system is penalized. And so now, with the new laws that have been enacted throughout the pandemic and even before, an attorney for an eviction is now like $1,500 or more. And because there are continuations that are allowed through the court system, it can be even more than that, because the lawyer says, well, geez, I gotta come again, I gotta come again. So what I think Gary was saying is, look, only one side of the equation is getting help with this, but the other guy, who may have almost the same amount of limited resources that the person who's been asked to come to court as a matter of breach of contract has, is left in the cold. And I'm just wanting to highlight that. So the questions that I had, the 2 questions I had for Mr. Fine were already sort of brought up. One was, is there any effort to include funding for attorneys for everybody? If we're going to help one side of a civil litigatory matter, which, by the way, is before a government court, the government is now supporting, through attorney representation, one side of that conflict, which does not seem fair. And the other question was, how much funding do we already give legal aid and unit tenants through the county, And how much funding do they receive through the state for similar actions? Because this is not new, by the way. If those of you are not aware, they already provide free counsel to the extent that they're able to. And this is not a new program, and this is not, by any means, I think, even a large part of that funding, if I'm not mistaken. Do you know how much funding they're already receiving for similar tenant aid services for legal services?
Yeah, I'll answer kind of your questions and Gary's together. I know that, yeah, the Legal Aid Society of Northeastern New York gets money from the state to provide legal counsel to people. That's a very large region. I believe it goes all the way to Canada, the Northeastern New York region. So I think it's pretty evident by the fact that only about 2% of tenants in the city of Albany have an attorney, that they don't have the
But is
capacity
that
to
statistic
provide
that they brought an attorney, or is that a statistic including when they're provided one through like Legal Aid, United Tenants? Because I see a lot of that, and that's why I'm asking. That would seem to be skewed.
You see a lot of what?
I believe-
People being represented by United Tenants, but it's usually after the fact, and because of the outreach issue. So to be clear, right,
Yeah.
a lot of times people will come to court, and then the judge will say, hey, do you have an attorney?
Yeah.
And they might say, well, geez, I don't. And then someone in the back of the room, used to be Sandy from United Tenants, would say, Your Honor, I can help this person. And then that person would suddenly have counsel. Okay, that's United
Yeah.
Tenants, Legal Aid, they all have representatives. That's when that person was there, or when that service was provided. Perhaps our county department would refer them, perhaps, DSS or anybody else. So
Okay,
this
we
service
gotta
already
move on to the next.
We gotta move on, but the
Several
question
people
is
still wanna
that
speak on
statistic
this.
relevant?
Okay.
Does it include those services?
Okay, I'll quickly try to answer all these questions. One, I think the disparity in representation shows why there is such a great need for attorneys representing tenants facing eviction. But I also understand landlords, especially smaller landlords, owner-occupied landlords especially, have been hurt too by the housing crisis. They're going through difficult times, and we should not ignore their concerns. And yes, if we wanted to come up with a program that targeted, those landlords, which it is only 5%, but if we wanted to target those landlords who can't afford an attorney, who are lower income, whatever those parameters are, I would happily support that.
Would
And
you
I would
amend
work
your,
with you.
would you amend your resolution tonight to add $100,000
That's not part of the
for landlords?
RFP. Gary, that's not part of the RFP. That's not what has been set forth previously. And at this point, if this doesn't move now, it's, the RFP was done over the last year. So it was a 9-10 month process to get to here.
I just think that if we're gonna do it, I think pretty much everybody's on board for helping the small family homeowner. It might be a great opportunity to do it tonight, but if we can't, we certainly should do something in the future on that.
I think that was.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just want to let okay, Dustin.
I'm going to support this as the pilot that it is. I do share the concerns of my colleagues, Ms. Plotsky, Mr. Demalowitz. I think I would look forward to work with my colleagues in the very, very near future to address a similar program that could assist small landlords here in the county who run into a similar issue.
Okay, did you want to
Let's
say
make it
something, Ms.
happen.
What you
Lakakis?
said, really.
Sir.
Okay.
My
Uh,
constituents are very in support of this program, and you just saw a bunch of them. And I don't believe that Sandy Levan is a lawyer, by the way. I think she's
No.
an advocate.
She
So it's
was-
different to bring a lawyer and to bring an advocate. It costs a different amount of money, it's a different amount of preparation, and, that's all
But
I'm
is a
gonna say.
lawyer needed, or is an advocate needed?
Okay.
A lawyer's preferable, but anyone there is better than nothing.
Right.
Correct.
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify, Sam. There's money in there for legal assistance in court for the tenant, but there is
Yes.
no money in there in court for the landlord. Is that correct?
There's no money for legal assistance for the landlord. There's money for rental arrears, which that money will go to the landlord.
Thank you, but that was not my question. Is there any money for legal assistance in court for a landlord?
There's not.
That's all I need.
something that
Thank you.
we would have to do at a later time, and I
Thank you, Mr.
believe we
Chairman.
should.
And the last important question that I had for you in the string was, with the money that you said is earmarked for arrearage,
Yes.
is there an opportunity for that to be administered before they go to court, saving everybody a lot of anxiety and time?
That's my understanding when
That's-
it would be done.
Well, he
You-
said when you're facing eviction in court, so that's why I'm asking.
I think he means for people, per the RFP, if you look at it in the backup, you'll see that it is for people who are in danger of eviction, people who are indigent, who are in need of resources, who arrears could actually help, as he said, not just a payment for someone who's going to be in arrears the next month as well. So yes, it would be going pre-court in these cases.
I would argue that
Okay,
there's
we're
a
not,
definition of that.
we gotta wrap this up.
If
right?
if you,
Mr. Drake, you're not, your time isn't recognized anymore, all right? We're not gonna have
Save it
just a
for the floor.
prolonged
Save it.
discussion on
Yeah,
it.
save it
All
for the
right?
floor, baby.
Okay, is there any more comments from anybody on the committee? All right, not hearing any, then I think we should
I'll make a
call.
comment.
Motion.
Okay, the motion,
Second.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Okay. That's it.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks.